Each one of our rooms does a certain purpose. This is an assembly room. This one in here is fabrication. When you get inside here, everything we deal with, the mill, the lathe, everything's old. We like working with real old stuff. Everybody, hey, I want to thank all my fans that are out there right now. Good one. I truly love you as much as what I'm hearing on these on Facebook.
One simple decision changed the directions of American restoration forever. For years, Rick Dale was the face of the series, turning forgotten junk into priceless treasures and building one of History Channel's biggest hits. Then, almost overnight, he was gone. What really happened behind the scenes? And where did Rick Dale's life go after the show that made him famous suddenly moved on without him? Join us as we uncover the extraordinary story behind Rick Dale's disappearance from American restoration, long before any camera arrived. Rick Dale did not become a restorer because a television show gave him the opportunity. He became a restorer because he could not imagine doing anything else. And the television show eventually found him doing it. He grew up with what he has described as an impoverished childhood, the kind of background that either produces people who spend their lives chasing security or people who develop such an indestructible relationship with making things that no amount of financial instability can shake it loose. Rick Dale became the second kind. He had a natural gift for looking at broken, discarded, ruined objects and seeing what they could become with the right amount of time, knowledge, and patience. Not nostalgia, actual skill. The ability to understand what something originally was, what it has become through years of use and neglect, and what it would take to bring it back without erasing the history that made it worth restoring in the first place. He established Rick's Restorations in Las Vegas, building a business focused on restoring vintage Americana, classic soda machines, gas pumps, antique cars, old signage, the specific artifacts of mid-century American commercial life that were rusting in barns and storage units across the country. Las Vegas, which tends to reward spectacle over subtlety, turned out to be a surprisingly good location for a restoration shop. The city is full of collectors, high rollers, casino operators, and nostalgic entrepreneurs who want extraordinary things and are willing to pay for them. The shop had been running as a real business for years before any production company noticed it. When the History Channel eventually came knocking, in the wake of the enormous success of Pawn Stars, which had demonstrated that Las Vegas-based businesses made for compelling reality television, Rick Dale did not need to construct a persona for the camera. He already was who the camera would show, a craftsman who loved old things, who could talk about them with genuine knowledge and enthusiasm, and who happened to be surrounded by a family that was also part of the business. His wife Kelly, his son Tyler, his stepson Brettley Otterman, and his brother Ron were all present in the shop in ways that the show could document naturally. The family business dynamic that gave American restoration much of its warmth was not assembled for television. It was already there. So when did everything start to go sideways? And who made the decision that ended Rick Dale's time on the show he had spent 6 seasons building? The network dropped him without warning. American Restoration premiered in 2010 on the History Channel and was an immediate hit. The show ran for 6 seasons, showcasing Rick Dale and the Rick's Restorations team taking beaten, broken, forgotten pieces of American history and returning them to their former glory. Vintage soda machines, antique gas pumps, classic cars. The specific visual satisfaction of watching something ruined become something beautiful, delivered by a man who clearly loved every part of the process. It worked for millions of viewers across 6 years. The ratings held, and the fan base was devoted. The show had become part of the same History Channel ecosystem as Pawn Stars and Counting Cars, a cornerstone of the network's reality programming block during the years when cable reality television was at the absolute peak of its cultural footprint. And then the network decided to change the format. In Season 7, the History Channel rebooted American Restoration to feature 5 different restoration shops across the country, instead of focusing on Rick's restorations in Las Vegas. Rick Dale and his team were dropped from the show entirely, not offered reduced roles, not brought back as occasional guests. The show that had been built around one man's expertise, one family's dynamic, and one shop's character was going to continue without any of them. The network made this decision without any public explanation beyond the standard language about refreshing the format and expanding the show's scope. Rick Dale has described the experience as shocking, not just the decision itself, but the lack of preparation for it. The speed with which a 6-season run simply ended without ceremony. The fans were not diplomatic in their response. The comment sections, social media pages, and fan forums that had supported the show for 6 years made their feelings absolutely clear. Without Rick Dale, American Restoration was not American Restoration. The combination of his expertise, his personality, his family's presence, and the particular warmth of watching genuinely skilled people do genuinely difficult work with genuine care. That was the show, not the concept. Season 7, the season without Rick, was canceled after 1 season. The network that had decided Rick Dale was expendable ended up with a show that nobody wanted without him. The format refresh that was supposed to reinvigorate the property instead ended it. But by the time the show was canceled, the damage to Rick's restorations itself was already becoming visible, because the relationship between the television show and the real business had been more interdependent than anyone had fully appreciated while it was running. Most fans assumed that when American Restoration ended, Rick Dale simply went back to running his successful shop. The reality was far more complicated. So what really happened to Rick's restorations once the television spotlight disappeared? The unexplained closure. Rick's Restorations was a real business before American Restoration made it famous. But 6 years of national television exposure had also made it something that a real business is very difficult to remain without. A household name, a destination, a place that people knew about because they had watched it on their screens. That visibility brought clients, press, and the kind of word of mouth that money cannot buy. When the show ended, when the History Channel dropped Rick Dale and the format collapsed and the cameras left Las Vegas, the visibility went with them. But it didn't happen overnight, gradually. But the pipeline of clients who had been drawn to Rick's restorations, partly because of the show's profile, began to thin, and the operational costs of maintaining a full restoration shop in Las Vegas continued regardless of the pipeline. Rick's restorations in Las Vegas closed permanently after the end of American Restoration. The shop that had been the center of Rick Dale's professional life and public identity for 6 television seasons and years before that was gone. The decision was not made dramatically or publicly. The shop simply closed, and Rick Dale moved forward. There have been persistent rumors across the years since the closure that Rick's restorations would make a comeback, that the shop would reopen, that a new deal would materialize, that the television version of Rick's world would somehow reassemble itself. None of those rumors have materialized into anything real. Rick Dale has heard them. He has not acted on them. What he has done instead is a more interesting story. Because the version of Rick Dale that exists in 2026 is not a man waiting for a television network to call. It is a man who figured out what actually mattered to him about the work and rebuilt his life around that specific thing, at a scale that suited his actual priorities rather than the demands of a production schedule. The cast that had been built around him scattered in the aftermath, each finding their own path forward. Tyler Dale, Rick's son, continued working as a restorer, developing his woodworking, welding, and metalwork skills into his own professional practice. Brettley Otterman, Rick's stepson, launched his own mobile media blasting business in Las Vegas, where he lives with his wife and 3 children. He took the skill he had developed at Rick's Restorations and turned it into an independent operation. Ron Dale, Rick's brother and the show's buyer and picker, stepped back from the industry and began building custom bicycles, a quieter pursuit that suited a man who had described missing the busy life of the show while also clearly not rushing back to replicate it. And Kelly Dale, Rick's wife, stepped forward. So what did Rick Dale himself actually do when the shop closed and the show ended and the cameras left? And what does his wife's success reveal about what the partnership between them was always built on? The business and the craftsman. Of all the post-show stories from the American Restoration cast, Kelly Dale's is the one that has taken the most unexpected turn, and the one that, in retrospect, makes complete sense given who she always was on the show. Kelly Mayer met Rick in the early 1990s, and they were immediately attracted to each other. Rick proposed to Kelly during Season 3 of American Restoration, which means millions of people were watching when he asked, and millions of people had an opinion about the answer. She said yes, obviously. They got married, and Kelly became a visible and important part of the Rick's Restorations world, not as a passive spouse, but as someone with genuine investment in the business and the specific interpersonal intelligence that keeps a family operation from tearing itself apart under the pressure of a television production. After the show ended and the shop closed, Kelly launched a new business, My Best Font Forward LLC, focusing on custom laser-cut metal art, embroidery, and personalized gifts. The business draws on Rick's lifelong relationship with metalwork and fabrication, while pivoting from the large-scale restoration jobs that defined Rick's Restorations toward a smaller-scale, more personal, more sustainable creative operation. Kelly also became a successful Las Vegas realtor, a complete change from the world of vintage Americana and restoration work, requiring a different skill set, a different client base, and a different daily reality. She has built that realtor career into something that people who know her describe as genuinely successful. The woman who appeared on American Restoration as Rick Dale's partner has become, in the years since the show, a businesswoman operating confidently in 2 completely different industries simultaneously. Rick, meanwhile, redirected his own energy toward the things about restoration that had always been personal rather than commercial. He wrote a book called Classic Soda Machines, a documentation of his deep knowledge of vintage vending equipment, the artifact category that had always been closest to his heart, and that he had become one of the most recognized experts on in the country. The book exists not as a television tie-in or a promotional exercise, but as a genuine contribution to the preservation of knowledge about a specific slice of American material culture. He has been consulting for high-end collectors and museums, bringing his expertise to institutions and individuals who want access to the knowledge without the television spectacle around it. That work, advising, evaluating, consulting, is quieter than anything the American Restoration cameras ever captured. It is also, in its own way, exactly the work that the show was always really about. The specific knowledge of what things were, what they are worth, and what it takes to bring them back. His estimated net worth as of 2025 sits at approximately $2.5 million, accumulated across television earnings, the ongoing revenue from My Best Font Forward, book royalties, and the consulting fees that the reputation he built across 30 years of restoration work continues to generate. It is a comfortable position for someone who has described himself as coming from an impoverished background. He got there through craft, through television, through his wife's business intelligence, and through the accumulated value of being genuinely good at something for a very long time. Rick Dale had achieved the kind of success he once could only have imagined. But once the television cameras were gone and the pressure to stay in the spotlight disappeared, what did he decide was no longer worth holding on to? Walking away from the tool that launched his career. One of the clearest indicators of who Rick Dale is in the post-American Restoration chapter of his life is what he chose to stop doing once the professional obligation to maintain a public presence was removed. He used to be active on both X, formerly Twitter, and YouTube. Regular updates, engagement with fans, the low-level content maintenance that television personalities perform to keep their audience connected between appearances. Once the show ended and the shop closed, those platforms went quiet. Not gradually, he simply stopped. The platform he has maintained is Instagram, but with a frequency and purpose that is very different from the content machine approach of someone managing a brand. He maintains a steady Instagram presence focused on his continuing metal fabrication projects, participation in automotive culture through car shows, and his personal life as a grandfather. The grandfather detail is the one that carries the most weight. Rick Dale's stepson, Brettley, has 3 children. His son, Tyler, has his own life and work. The man who spent 6 seasons on national television restoring things other people had forgotten about is now in the part of his life that the cameras are not present for, doing what most people who have built something and raised someone eventually get to do. Being a grandfather, watching what he built continue into the next generation, existing at a quieter frequency than the television years required. He commands appearance fees ranging from $15,000 to $24,999 for corporate events and automotive gatherings as of 2025 and 2026, which means the reputation the show built continues to generate real income for appearances where his knowledge and his personality are the product being purchased. He shows up at car shows, he consults, he does the metalwork that has always been his actual vocation. He lets Kelly run the embroidery and laser cutting business. He stays off Twitter. That is not at all a diminished life. That is a man who extracted what the television experience had to offer. The platform, the reputation, the financial security, and then returned to the work with the people that actually mattered to him when the machine that created the platform stopped running. Rick Dale walked away from television without chasing another reality show or trying to relive his years in the spotlight. Instead, he returned to the work that had defined him from the very beginning. So when you separate the television success from the man himself, who is Rick Dale really? What the show was and what he actually is. Here is what the full story of Rick Dale and American Restoration adds up to when you look at it clearly. The History Channel built a hit show around a genuine craftsman doing genuine work in a genuine family business. For 6 seasons, that combination delivered millions of viewers who responded to the specific authenticity of watching someone who actually knew what they were doing, actually cared about what they were restoring, and actually had real relationships with the real people around him. The show worked because Rick Dale was not performing restoration expertise. He had it. When the network decided to refresh the format and remove him, they discovered what every viewer who had been watching for 6 years already knew. The show was not the concept. It was him. The single season of American Restoration without Rick Dale confirmed this in the most direct possible way by failing immediately and completely, canceled after 1 season, leaving behind nothing that anyone remembers or discusses. The shop closed because the business model had been partly sustained by television visibility, and that visibility disappeared with the show. The cast scattered to their own pursuits. Tyler restoring, Brettley blasting, Ron building bicycles, Kelly selling houses and running a creative business. All of them carried forward the skills and relationships they had developed inside Rick's restorations into smaller, quieter, more sustainable lives. And Rick Dale himself carried forward the thing that had been there before the television show arrived and that has remained after it left, the knowledge of how to look at something broken and see what it used to be, what it could be again, and what it would take to get there. Rick Dale has a net worth of approximately $2.5 million, a wife whose own career has flourished in the years since the show ended, a son and stepson both running their own operations, grandchildren, a book on a shelf, and a quieter life that he appears, from every available indicator, to be genuinely content with. That was always the whole story. The television part was just a particularly bright chapter in the middle of it. Do you think History Channel made its biggest mistake when it replaced Rick Dale? Or was leaving the show ultimately the best thing that ever happened to him? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.